kind of highlighted some of their key issues in their ability to team fight. But one of the things that they are exceptionally good at is finding early game leads off their main man, Djoko, in the jungle. This guy is so good at finding early advantages, and something that Misfits last week were not able to do against Splyce is get that early advantage. So we know that Giants have an avenue to successfully come into this game and potentially find an upset win.
That we do. We'll have to see how they decide to do that, because last week we saw things like the Camille coming out from Djoko. This game, we've already got the Trundle, Tahm Kench, and the Aatrox and Nocturne banned away. A lot of opportunities, things like the Taliyah, like the Zoe spring to mind.
Yeah, Djoko loves Taliyah, but so does Maxlore. So I would be surprised to see it left open here on the blue side from Giants. Maybe if they get a bit cheeky, but it's most likely going to be that Taliyah ban.
Interestingly, Misfits...
Ooh, that's a little bit cheeky already, isn't it?
Yeah. It does feel like a lot of teams. Okay, I'm definitely in for an interesting trade now today. Wow!
Whoa!
Azir, the first pick.
Okay.
So, okay, a couple things. Azir, often considered pretty good into things like the Orianna, which I feel Betsy's pretty comfortable, and he did play it last week, as we saw in the previous replay. But also, the fact that Taliyah has been left open, to me, implies that there must be some kind of answer to it.
Right, exactly. And Taliyah traditionally struggles versus champions that can get in on her, because all she has to disengage is that seismic shove, which actually is not that hard to land, as you might think. So we'll see whether or not they do go for that more aggressive jungler playing into Taliyah, or whether they're just like, you know what, Djoko, pick what you want, we don't care.
Yeah, and now we're going back old school. This is spraying Ryze versus Azir. Often, kind of very early levels goes in favor of Azir. Then it goes towards Ryze as it gets a little bit more wave clear, and then once they both get their first item, it's just a farm lane. Nothing exciting happens until you get to those mid to late game fights, and Ryze kind of has a little bit more impact in the early game, and when you pair it up with a Taliyah, you are able to look for a couple of early skirmishes, look for a couple of early fights, and it looks like Giants will be relying on Djoko to find themselves those early leads.
What I want to see specifically from Misfits this draft is whether or not they go back to the stick Alphari on Mundo duty in the draft, because they have dabbled in putting him on a more carry and playing around him in that top lane, which hasn't really had the same amount of success. But having said that, you're in the playoffs. If you're Misfits, you're in the playoffs. Now is the time to experiment and to refine strategies if they want to go for something they're not so good at, just so that they can practice that and get it ready for the playoffs.
And Giants is the team to do it against as well. They haven't performed that well across the course of the split. Giants are still vying for the bottom side of playoffs, but they're probably out of contention. So Misfits here can experiment a little bit if they want.
Yeah, just to clarify, neither of these teams have yet locked in. It's just expectations based on their standings and the situations that they are in. But I love that you bring up that Alphari point. Something that I watched last week was that even though this team is good at investing resources into him, he's someone that doesn't seem to have that same carry spark that players like Hansama has demonstrated throughout the regular season. And I feel like that if you want someone that is a big playmaker and if you want someone to be a carry, Hansama is the man to do it. And they gave them Xayah Rakan.
Yes. I think what's ironic about Alphari not being a carry in the traditional sense of like playing carries and carrying, I still think he is a big... He carries Misfits in a big way just through the fact that you don't have to give him much at all. If you just sit him in his lane, ignore him, whatever, let him do his thing, he'll absorb pressure, he'll go even, sometimes he'll win his lane as well. And for me, that is a huge benefit to Misfits in enabling them and their strategy.
So we've got through our first rotation of picks here. Ryze, Taliyah, Ezreal for Giants, Azir, Xayah, Rakan for Misfits. Second set of bans are coming out as well. Kindred and Sejuani for Giants, and Rumble and Mundo for Misfits.
Misfits ban them.
Oh, they're going to ban the Mundo away. Giants right now, they're yet to lock in a support. They could go for something like a Braum or Alistair. Kind of answers
great prediction,
hard
Vedius.
engage from the side of Rakan. Kind of limited answers when you're going up against the Rakan and you yourself lock in the Ez. So now they're kind of lacking is that top laner, and I'd like to see a little bit more engage come out from the side of Giants as they don't have that hard engage just yet.
Misfits are still looking for that answer for Taliyah that we talked about as well. Olaf is the hover at the moment. Could work. There's a lot of different possibilities for them though.
Ah, you got debated. You can't talk about the hovers.
I said it could. I said it could work. I left it deliberately loose.
In theory, I'm actually on the Olaf.
Riven could work as well.
Riven probably won't work. Okay, you know what? Let's not talk about the hovers because we're all going to get very excited.
Oh, this one would only be okay. Oh, oh, oh!
Alrighty.
Rengar.
That is an interesting pick there.
Yeah.
I think that Rengar is definitely one of these champions that you jump on your target and you're a huge threat. Depending on where you're fighting, it will be extremely hard for Djoko to ever take a fight around Rengar, and has to always respect the potential. Is Maxlore going to be in this area? If so, I don't want to be here. And especially after level 6, where Taliyah, one of her weaknesses is she doesn't really get any kind of power spike at level 6, no massive ultimate to help her start winning the fights. Not to say the wall is bad ability, but just in those pure fight scenarios. Rengar, on the other hand, absolutely levels up when he gets that ultimate unlocked and really has the ability to just jump on someone, chase them down, and be a huge threat to any squishies.
Yeah, and also I think, you mentioned at the end there, squishies, there are a lot on the side of Giants, except for that Poppy, perhaps. And I love this pick into the Misfits squad. You look at the number of dashes that are on the side of Misfits and how much mobility they have. You get Poppy in the front line, and she can just mitigate a lot of that mobility and kind of lock targets down and allow this plenty of CC that they have in their composition to just keep the chase down and kill that primary target. But you kind of look overall at the comps, and there's a lot of scaling, there's a lot more team fighting. The main difference for Misfits this week compared to last week is their bot lane has a winning matchup. Xayah, Rakan, Mikyx on a playmaker, Han Summer on something you can find a lot of early kills with, and I feel like this will be the biggest differential that we see from last week, and they're going to be looking to snowball that bot lane.
Yeah, and Han Summer and Mikyx win lanes when they're in losing matchups, let alone when they're given probably the strongest duo in that bot lane.
I'm always happy to see Rakan play. Like, it's my favorite champion in the game. He's running the Samsung Galaxy Rakan skin as well, which is sublime. Little bit annoyed the fact that Han Summer decided to go for Sweetheart Rakan, Sweetheart Xayah. Why not just synergize? You might as well.
I like that phrase.
Thank you.
I mean, we put 3 Brits on the caster desk. The least they could have done is match skins.
You're Welsh, so you really, like...
I am a Brit.
But you were selling the Brit angle yourself when I was back.
He's a Brit when he's doing well.
Yeah, that's
he's Welsh when he's doing poorly.
The Murray syndrome right here. British when he's winning, Scottish when he's losing.
So as we jump on into the game, we talked so much at the start of Pick and Ban about early game jungle pressure. Which of these guys is going to be able to put on the more pressure? Where are they looking? What's the intention from both these junglers?
Taliyah is the best early game jungler. Just going to say it, flat out. Taliyah is the best early game jungler. Rengar has the strength to fight someone. But Taliyah, she has the playmaking potential. I would not want to run into Rengar in the early game, that's for sure.
Why?
Because he's blooming strong, mate.
All right.
Because if he fights you, he's going to do a crap ton of damage to you. And I think face checking Rengar is one of the scariest things you can do, and it's almost guaranteed you have to blow your flash.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes off the back of he does get that auto attack reset on his Q. He also has the bowler to act as a slow, and once he gets those savagery stacks, which are pretty easy to build, the bonus damage you get, the extra utility you can get, all of that really makes him that strong early game skirmisher that if you run into him is going to be very scary to go up against.
Not to mention that Taliyah specifically received nerfs to her early game. Are they on this patch?
Yes, the cooldown on her Q.
Exactly. So in the early ranks, she's actually not quite as oppressive as she used to be. I still think she's the best early game jungler, but specifically in that 1v1, you're going to get like 1 Q out, one set rotation from Djoko, whereas Maxlore very well can spam abilities and get 2, even 3 Qs off of there, so quite scary in that matchup.
And in terms of where Djoko's looking to go, he doesn't have a huge number of options. Mid would kind of be his best bet. You can see that Sencux is running Cleanse, which will make things a little harder, but in terms of actual lane setup, Betsy's the only one that he can really look to play around.
And this game is so important for Giants just in their general end of the split as well. They're still vying for that playoff spot, 3-9 at the moment. This Misfits game comes up first, and then they have so many tough games left. You're looking at the top half of the table just embodied in this schedule. So they need to start their winning ways soon. If they can get 3, 4, probably 5 wins out of this, they're looking at that 8-win mark, and they're going to be able to make it to playoffs.
There's a good chance they might even need 9 wins to make it to playoffs this bit, because H2K by themselves, without being able to pick up a win, means that they haven't been able to steal wins off of any other teams. So we're getting early. Yeah, ooh, that's the flash.
It's a great prediction from Mikyx as well. Predicted the arcane shift. Flash had to get used from Steeelback to keep him safe.
And look at that pings in the top side as well here. Maxlore has taken the bot side scuttle and has now bombed it to this top side river to do the same really denying Djoko on this early pick.
Having that early vision control will help a lot as well, given that, you know, we talked about the goals of these compositions and how Misfits will look probably to play through their strong bot side of the map, try and get them ahead, and open Mikyx to roam around the map and work with Maxlore once he hits level 6 to look for a lot of picks and kills. Whereas Giants, they have a double tier. Ryze and Ezreal will need time to scale, but they're not the strongest late game champions. It's the mid game where they'll really come into their own. And Djoko on 2 items, Ezreal and Ryze in the same situation. The 20 to 25 minute mark is where this composition really turns online. And that's kind of what they're waiting for. Until then, they don't need to force anything. Djoko's main responsibility should be to look for a couple of ganks. Maybe if he can apply a bit of pressure, that's great. But his focus should be on clearing through the jungle and just putting down vision to limit Misfits' impact on snowballing that bot side of the map.
Let's talk a little bit as well, not just about the lane matchups, but look at this first dragon that's spawning in Infernal. Teams don't like to give up Infernals, and oftentimes you will see pressure shifted towards the side of the map where you can, well, side of the map, it's always on the bot side, that's where Dragon lives.
Yep.
But the Infernal Dragon might be a focus of the junglers or be on the mind of these champions.
Certainly true. And it's something that Misfits do a lot of as well. Around like 8 minutes is when they almost always take the Drake and then swap, and then they look to get Rift Herald as early as possible. And I do believe that they are one of the best Rift Herald teams that we have in our league. So it's something that they regularly do in their games, and it all comes off the back of, again, having that winning matchup in the bot lane. So Misfits kind of sticking to a style that they found a lot of success with so far during the regular season.
Glad to see them switch back to it, though, because last week against Splice, they didn't play this style. They put Alphari on more of a carry top laner. They were a little bit slower, didn't do that much in the early game, and because of that, Splice were able to get to a position on their comfort champions that won them the game in the end. So this is much more like the the Misfits that have got 10 wins rather than the Misfits that have got 2 losses.
Certainly the case. So far in this top lane matchup, Alphari has been doing pretty well. You know, you talked about it earlier on, Foxdrop, about how he's just super consistent and reliable when you put him on tanks, and he kind of acts as a carry in a different way to being a traditional carry.
Yes, the unsung carry of Misfits. Sencux taking a bit of a trade here in the mid lane. Betsy.
We keep seeing Betsy win out on these trades on the rise. Vedius told us that this is what would happen in the early game until they get towards those first items. Djoko trying to find one of those ganks as Sencux may push forward for these minions. Betsy pushes. There's the Rune Prism, but cleanse straight away from Sencux.
I don't think you really should have flashed for that one, knowing that Sencux has that cleanse, because there's a very slim chance that Sencux forgets which button his cleanse is on, which is the only way that you would get that.
He did do it with stopwatch last week, so it can happen.
True. So far, though, he did know he was able to cleanse out of that sticky situation, and Misfits walk away, or Sencux rather walks away as a happy chappy. Maxlore in the meantime has just been farming away. 37 CS, not actually 37, but jungle creeps are recorded slightly differently to standard.
I mean, if I'm a jungler, I'm like, hey, I'm 41 CS, guys. I'm doing really well. Look at how good I am.
And he is doing well. Level 5 now, nearing level 6, and that's the big point for Misfits, where they'll look to force Maxlore, or have Maxlore force plays.
And because the bot lane priority, like you mentioned with that winning bot lane from Misfits, it enables Maxlore to go for this early dragon, which is going to set his team up nicely. And I like you mentioning the level 6 here. Holy, Betsy's just really giving it Sencux, isn't he? But I like what you mentioned about the level 6s, because after that flash gets blown from Betsy in that kind of botched engage, Maxlore is going to hit level 6 relatively soon, and when Sencux hits level 6 too, which he has now, he's got his flash, he's got his ultimate available, absolutely, 100%. You look to that mid lane, you look to that Ryze, you get the setup from the Shurima Shuffle from Sencux, you've got your ultimate to go in there as well from Maxlore, and you're sorted. I think that's a really good lane to gank, and Betsy needs to be careful.
So our eyes are on the mid lane to see if Maxlore does look to gank there. Nearing that level 6 mark, I believe like 2 more camps, I would say, based on the amount of experience he has. Max in the queue, very typical, and I want to pretty confidently say that this is our first Rengar of the EU LCS.
Oh, how confident are you?
I'm super confident.
Well, you should be.
Is it actually?
It is. First Rengar of the EU LCS, the split. Has been played
not ever.
in the top 5 regions. It's been played 9 times. Guess its win rate. Guess its win rate. Let's go.
I'm going to say 27%.
27%.
45.
45. It's 44.4.
Oh!
Foxdrop is right on it. Vedius, if you'd been slightly more on the ball, you would have worked out that you can't get 27% from 9 games. That's not how maths works.
Oh, well, I'm sorry that I didn't do that mental arithmetic. But thank you for the feedback. It is duly noted.
That was such a Welsh thing to do, honestly.
Such a Welsh
thing. If you were
English.
Yeah, mostly winning in the LPL and LCK. Dardox played it in NALCS as well.
Ah, yes.
Haven't seen it into a Taliyah matchup before, so we haven't seen this specific counter pick before in the top 5 regions of the world.
He's looking for it in that mid
That
lane.
level 6, you talked about it, Foxtrot, but Betsy's like, I feel like a cat wants to stab me in the back. So he's playing very defensive right now. You can see Misfits even getting a bit of deep vision down because they want to look to contest this blue buff.
And Maxlore there, Djoko immediately backs away. Good stun onto Mikyx, will force him to use the blast cone, but 4 members of Misfits are here, and around the blue it resets. Here comes Betsy. Misfits trying to work their way into this jungle, but Giants want to react. Seismic Shove does not connect. Maxlore's popped the Thrill of the Hunt. The smite comes down, goes to Djoko. He got it.
Yep, Djoko stole it away.
Nukesalot had to flash at the end.
And it's
Didn't see it was so small. So small.
I think the biggest thing about that play is that Maxlore lost his ultimate from it.
Yes.
And that's a huge cooldown at rank 1. I think specifically roughly 130 seconds if I were just to guess.
Rough guess, yeah.
Rough guess, not because I looked. And that's 2 minutes window where Betsy now, he'll probably have his flash up at that time. So now that window to punish Betsy has completely gone. Maxwell can still gank without the ultimate, but it's just a lot harder to do.
It is, and now Djoko even has his eyes on Misfits blue buff, and they're not going to be in a position to react in time. Djoko utilizing the movement speed bonus that he does get on his passive to very quickly move around the map, and his insanely fast clear speed will result in Misfits kind of being left with their pants around their ankles.
So all that this first 10 minutes has done is allow Giants to get towards those 2 items. That's all they want to do. We said Djoko just needs to be there for counter ganks. He needs to play the early game well. Yes, if you get a couple of kills, that's fine, but Ezreal's already completed the man immune. You have Tears stacking up on Betsy. You have the possibility of roaming as well, which is what Giants are going to do now.
They have their eyes set on Maxlore. Remember that there is a ward there that he did clear out, but he doesn't know that Giants are looking for this collapse.
Djoko and Betsy waiting around the corner. Maxlore with the flash straight away, respects the damage that can come out from a Taliyah and Ryze.
Yeah, he knows he doesn't have the support from his team. Alphari just DP'd up top lane, and they weren't going to be able to save him in time, so that just results in an immediate flash coming out from Maxlore.
He does get his War Enchant after he recalls, which is quite a big power spike for any of these physical damage champions in the jungle. Do you know the difference between having 2 long swords and having a War Enchant is?
One of them is, I feel like this is a pun.
No.
I feel like there's a pun coming on.
No. It's a BF sword's worth of AD.
Whoa.
Damn.
So if you just have those 2 long swords and you get that recall off, which is what happened with Maxlore, you've basically based for your BF sword.
Nice.
Which is pretty significant as far as that damage goes. And this ward right here is what I want to talk about a bit earlier on. When we were saying that Maxlore would go to that mid lane and use his ultimate to punish the fact that Betsy didn't have his flash, he was going through the bot side of the river, but that pink ward that was just destroyed was still sitting there, which meant that Betsy could hug the top side of his lane, knowing he's not going to get ganked from that side, and it made it really hard to get an initiation off for Maxlore, who was sitting in the bush that Mikyx is now sitting in. So I would have liked to seen a bit more kind of just care taken around the mid lane to sweep the vision, because then I think it would have been a lot harder for Betsy to survive.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about junglers, but I also want to talk a little bit about mid laners, because not only has Betsy played this early laning phase very well, but Sencux on Azir. I want to throw your minds back to Spring Splits, Misfits, where there was a lot of criticism going towards Sencux. He didn't have great games on Azir in the past.
And he didn't have great games on anything.
Well, no, to be fair, on roaming champions, he always played well. Things like Aurelion Sol and Galio, we gave him a lot of credit and we thought he was good at. But control mages specifically were a point that Deficio and I criticized heavily, pretty much throughout the entire split. And given that was such a control mage heavy meta, it was something that didn't suit them. And this split, we felt like, oh, he was great. He's played a bunch of carries, he's looked really good. But now he's back on the Azir, he's struggling in lane. His Orianna last week was also not optimal. And my eyes are kind of on him to see if he can be the big carry that he has been for the first half of the split.
Maxwell hasn't realized there's a ward here. Steeelback jumps forward. Joker's on his way down as well. Steeelback rooted up. There's the Weaver's wall. They're just trying to catch out Maxlore, but the charm comes in. One down, Rakan just deleted as he jumps in. Mikyx, you do not want to go into the unraveled earth like that.
He disappeared. I thought that it was the Maxlore that was dead, but no.
But no, it was the Mikyx.
It was the Mikyx.
That is incredible. Once you get those first jungle items, the Runic Echoes, how much damage came through there? He legit basically killed himself in that play.
So as a Rakan player, I have done this in the past against Taliyah jungles. The Unraveled Earth damages you if you dash through it.
Yeah.
So he ulted and dashed into it and just killed himself because of all of the Unraveled Earth that was there. I think he got hit by one of the threaded volleys as well from Djoko, but it's a mistake that is commonly made by Rakan.
Yeah, so it is exactly as you describe it, man. Keep your eyes on Mikyx in this fight. He has about 500 HP, and then the moment he sees the engage, they realize, oh, the target is Maxlore, not us. I need to save him, and then he just dives into the Unraveled Earth as it comes out.
He genuinely explodes from that play. That is actually incredible. 500
damage in an instant. Q plus E plus the runic echoes. Goodbye, Rakan.
And we said it was a favorable matchup for Hansama and Mikyx. Well, giving a kill to the enemy AD carry makes that matchup a lot less favorable. Sheen finished, Mura mana. You can see Steeelback in the last weeks has actually been doing a lot better. This time, he's on the Ezreal, he's ahead. Can he live up to that performance once again?
But this is what you mentioned before, Vedius, before this game went in. Giants are pretty good at getting these early game advantages, but your question marks around them more surround turning that early game advantage into victories, mid and late game advantages as well. So, from your perspective, my dear friend, what are they doing from now? Where do they go? How do they turn this into a victory?
So for me, it's very much about those 2-item spikes and like scaling. We talked a little bit about it. Like once they have the tier fully stacked, and once Ryze, I believe, usually second, he'd go for either a magic penetration item, something like the Morellonomicon, or you can go for something a little more defensive like the Zhonya's. The choice is kind of up to you. Actually, we would commonly see things like a Rod of Ages too, right? But it looks like he's not decided to grab that. He's just trying to rush the upgrade on his tier. But the thing about that is, once they get that, you need to be able to play a good 1-3-1. Ideally, you put the Ezreal in the mid lane, and then you have Ryze sitting on a side lane, and either working with Taliyah to use their globals to quickly look for picks, or you just kind of use the pressure that they generate in side lanes to then use your numbers advantage to then group up and look for fights. Because in terms of an actual 5v5, they have a surprising amount of single target damage, and they're not great in that AoE environment that, say, an Azir and an Ornn would be, even a Taliyah. So in the full 5v5, I kind of give the edge to Misfits, so Giants will have to look to play the 1-3-1 and avoid team fighting. And based on what Devisha said earlier, where they don't know how to team fight, nor do they know when to team fight, avoiding team fighting completely feels to me like a pretty good strategy.
I mean, it makes it a lot easier for you, doesn't it? I don't know how to play laning phase. River Shed.
See, there's the next level thinking from the side of Giants. The question is, can they pull off? Because 1-3-1, typically a lot harder to execute than just straight up 5v5.
Not only is it hard to execute against a Rengar, he likes to prey on those isolated targets. If you do send people alone in the side lanes, especially the Ryze will be much more vulnerable than someone else would be, like a tankier target, then yeah, you can definitely punish that. So a lot of it comes down to the execution from Giants to make sure they don't fall prey to Maxlore's Rengar.
Yeah, so far, Maxlore's Rengar has been pretty much invisible. Usually that's a scary thing, but so far this game it hasn't been. They are going to look to get this early game tower down towards the bottom lane, and that is the kind of lane we expected more presence around, but with Maxlore only using his ultimate once so far in 16 minutes, that feels pretty low to me. Do you kind of agree, Foxtrot?
Yeah, that's not really... That is suboptimal, I would say. It is suboptimal, especially since the only time he used it was to bugger off.
Yeah, to die.
Just to run away.
The 4 members of Misfits are coming down towards this bottom lane. Maxlore,
here we go.
The ult once again. Mikyx with the engage, down to about half HP. Steeelback running away, but the Thrill of the Hunt is doing a lot of work. Misfits have to disengage. Sencux there with the Azir as well. Betsy did teleport into the fight, and they're able to force Misfits back towards their tower.
And that's a flash blind from Maxlore as well. You dedicated the resources. The ultimate that we were talking about from Maxlore, 1 in 16 minutes, not great. Oh look, we set up perfectly as we have scripted these games to use his second ultimate.
Don't tell them about the script.
Oh wait, was that? Oh, sorry. That was, yeah.
It's alright.
Cut that out, right?
Yeah, we can just edit that out. We edited it out.
Post as well.
Okay, that's fine. So Maxlore gets his second ultimate off of the game, and again, just has to completely disengage. It feels like, I mean, they're just lacking a certain something. Do you know what I mean? From
kills. They're lacking kills.
They are, but they're lacking the push in the bottom lane as well. Like earlier on, you said Misfits usually get Dragon around 8 minutes. They did it at 6. They take the tower and then they lane swap towards top. That hasn't happened. Giants have now taken the first tower of the game. They're 3,000 gold ahead, and Giants seem to just be outright winning this early game.
Well, I mean, they are. And again, a lot of it comes off the back of Djoko. Not only did he invade towards the top side and force the flash out from Maxlore, which kind of limited his ability to look for plays, because as you know, Rengar doesn't have that many mobility escapes, so once he's in, if he doesn't have his flash, he's kind of stuck in there. But at the same time, Djoko's just been going bot lane, and he's always shown up every time Maxlore has shown up. And Mikyx goes for an engage, gets wiped out by Djoko right from the start of every single fight that's happened so far, and then immediately Misfits are at a health disadvantage. Maxlore doesn't have any follow-up because Rakan is out of the fight, and Giants are the ones coming out ahead. And now they've got a 2,500 gold lead, 18 minutes into a game. The tiers are stacking up nicely, the second item has been completed for Steeelback, and everything looks good for Giants.
I think the tiers are stacking up on Ryze, Ez, and all of the Misfits fan base with the way that this game is going so far. If you are Misfits right here, I think you honestly just want to stop doing anything, really. You kind of just want to chill out. You have the good scaling. Oh, got to fight though.
And Mikyx goes for the engage, but knocked up straight away, and he is dead.
Listen to me, Misfits. Just stop. Just stop. It's not working. They've been the proactive team in multiple times in these engages, and they keep getting screwed out of it. Just chill out. You have the scaling. It's fine. This is not fine, though.
It's just so tough for Mikyx to play the Rakan into this matchup, and you can see Giants playing for playoffs. Now their coach had something to say before this game.
Yeah, this game was super important because they believed that in order to still have a chance, they needed to go 5-1 or 6-0 over the next 3 weeks to even have a chance of qualifying for a tiebreaker. And while it would be difficult, anyone would kind of say the same, this has been their best week of practice pretty much throughout the entire split. We heard that from the coach himself. That's what the tweet was saying. And we're kind of seeing that. Djoko is reading Maxlore extremely well. He has answered every single thing that Maxlore has tried to do, and he has shut him down. We saw another engage happen towards the top side. Djoko was there, and again, keep your eyes on Mikyx's HP, and every time Djoko throws out that E, because he's basically just killing himself after every fight.
And this, again, is the proactive team for this one. The engager is Misfits. You know, at this point, yeah, just go away, just leave, just run. No. I really think that they need to chill out. And maybe they're getting baited by the Maxlore ultimate, because every time he presses R, something bad happens.
Yep.
Max, mate, if you can hear me, unbind R. Just stop using it. It ain't working, fella. I don't think he can hear me.
I don't think he can hear you. I should hope not that he cannot hear you.
I did raise my voice level.
No, that's true.
You do that in your solo queue games as well. If someone just keeps, you know, ulting in the wrong position, it's like, mate, just unbind R for like the next 10 minutes. We'll play without it, and then we can reset.
So you don't say that, because that can then get picked up for getting reports. What you do is you press tab, see that little green button where the ultimate is?
Oh, and you spam ping it. There we go.
That's it.
I'm just communicating that it's down.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm asking when that Rengar ult is available again.
Yeah.
Tactically.
You can do it on the little champion portraits now as well. If you press Alt and ping above the champion portrait, where you can see other people's timers, makes it really easy for you. Not for flame purposes.
No. Obviously. No, of course.
Rifthold used in the mid lane here by Giants. 4,000 gold ahead now, trying to take their third tower of the game. And this is probably the first time I think we have seen Misfits having not taken a tower lose 3 of their own.
Oof.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good estimate. Because for the vast majority of this split, Misfits have been the early game.
10 out of 12 times, they've taken 3 towers first in their games.
10 out of 12 times.
That's nutty. Speaking of which,
caught out a little bit up towards the top side. He's going to use the ultimate once again. Straight onto Betsy, and that's the damage you can do, but you're now into a Seraphs, and the shield from Betsy's abilities as well makes it very hard for Maxlore to actually burst anyone down.
Yep, so Maxlore, again, unable to have an impact on this Rengar. You know, it's always great to see Rengar, you always get excited, but to my recollection, every time I've seen Maxlore bring out this Rengar, it's never had an impact. I think back to the finals last year in Paris when they went up against G2. It was game 2 or game 3 where he brought that Rengar out and everyone's like, oh, this is exciting, this is hype, he's going to carry. And again, he just failed multiple times to find those picks, to find a good flank in these team fights. And it just feels like that while there's a big comfort pick for him, it's something that he made a name for himself on back when he was just coming into the LCS scene. It's something that has failed to have a big impact on the LCS.
On the bright side, Rengar as a champion is certainly not someone that if you're failing the first 20 minutes, you're out the game. Rengar can scale, and his ability to one-shot opponents is always going to be there if you're comfortable enough on the champion to be able to identify those windows where you can pounce on opponents. And especially, like you say, going into a 1-3-1 comp, as Giants will most likely be executing, then there will be opportunities as the game goes on, and for Maxlore, as he ranks up his ultimate and buys CDR, it doesn't matter if he sucks at pressing R, because it's going to have a much slower cooldown.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. Look at the map right now. You can see that Steeelback and Sencux had just pushed in mid, and now rotating up top to create a numbers advantage to try and apply a bit of pressure up towards Misfits duo.
What's Maxlore doing on the bot side of the map here? I don't really think that if you're looking to kind of 2v1 something, you're really looking at the Poppy, especially since she has her steadfast presence, which makes it literally impossible for you to engage in onto her with your leap. So I don't think he should be looking at that side of the map, especially when Giants is already knocking down your top side.
I guess he's afraid of the 4 members top side from Giants, and the thing that always scares me if I'm a Rengar is the Braum. Every time you dive in, he uses his CC, he locks you down, and you can get very quickly chain CC'd and locked out of a fight.
Totally agree with you, Vedius. We see Giants actually setting up vision around the Baron now, and it's important to note that their Barons have not been the best this split. On average, they get about 2,700 gold off a Baron power play. The average for European LCS is 4,600, so about half, a little bit over half. They get less kills, less towers per Baron than any other team, but perhaps with a 4,000 gold lead over our league leaders, they can do a little bit more. They're going to pop the Weaver's Wall here as Djoko catches onto Mikyx, and Mikyx has been the punching bag this game. He is a paltry matter for Giants to take out.
Flash for flash used, but it did find another kill onto Mikyx. Ruin is even able to steal away the red buff, and Giants maintain full control over this Baron right now. And if multiple members show up... Oh, actually, Steeelback is there. I thought the Giants would look to actually start off the Baron, especially if more members of Misfits showed up bot, but nope, Steeelback was like, I would like a red buff, please. Doesn't get it.
Doesn't get it. Which is a bit surprising as well, because Giants actually have a pretty good Baron team. They have the tanks for it, which is often, nowadays, the biggest kind of qualifying factor for being able to take early Barons is, do you have someone to tank for it? Ryze damage, Taliyah damage, Ez damage, pretty good at taking away that Baron in the early game, and once they have that pick, I mean, the least you can do is just to deny the vision and try and get Misfits to face check into you, to push into you, and then maybe you can try something there as well with the Realm Warp or stuff like that, but don't even try it.
So we finally got to that point where Giants are in the mid-game. You said 20 to 25 minutes, maybe up to that 30-minute mark. They've got 2 items on their main carries, 3 already on to Steeelback. Djoko sitting on 2 items as well. And they're setting up around the Baron with a 4,000 gold lead. This feels like prime time for Giants to take over this game.
This is also normally when they throw the game.
Yeah.
Right? This is normally when, if you're watching Giants, like, this is the point at which they just have a tendency to make poor decisions or look for poor fights.
Or do nothing for ages.
Or do nothing.
I remember casting them against Splyce, and it was 15 minutes that they danced around Baron, did nothing, kept the gold lead perfectly even, and then Splyce got the Baron and won the game in the end.
And that's what they don't want to do when they are that much stronger than Misfits are right now. This is such a big spike. Ryze at this point in the game is so much more impactful than the Azir, and they just need to be proactive. They need to not be afraid of Misfits. And so far, Giants have played this game wonderfully. They sit on a very healthy gold lead right now. The question is, can they actually do it?
So Foxdrop,
That's me.
you're in a solo queue game. This is the situation. You know you're ahead, you're 4 kills to 0 up, you've taken the outer towers, you're the jungler, you're calling the shots, you're pinging people, you're spamming them, you're typing in chat. What do you do next?
I say buy pink wards, fellas.
Okay.
Pink wards are important. You deny vision away from people,
Yep.
and you force the opponents to come into you, be like, oh, I wonder what's going on down here, and then bam, you're turning them, you pounce. Especially when you have a Braum, you legit, you can sweep vision around the Baron. The enemy team, exactly like this, will have to come and face check you, and then if you're maybe setting up a trap, they just blue warded that bush, then you can turn it and you can get a good fight.
Now, they did just concede a lot of pressure here, but this isn't too bad because of the priority they have down bot, and the fact that Steeelback and Sencux are still hanging around mid, which means that they can clear this out. So the fact that they did lose that vision is fine, because you're resulting in Alphari losing farm towards the bot side of the map, and the only way they got that vision control is because they grouped up as 5 and kind of forced their way in. So that's one way which you can gain vision back, but also, you talked about control wards. Vision is really important for Giants too, because their engage is really only a poppy flank, And if he wants to find that, you need deep vision to know that the flank is safe, but also to give him more wards to TP to and behind.
Right, and the best way to engage is actually to not engage yourself, but to kind of force the enemy team to come up into you. And that's where the Braum comes in, and the Realm Warp as well for chasing them down, or even kind of like sandwiching the Misfits squad. Thus far into the game, I feel like Misfits have actually handed Giants a lot of their advantage. Especially Mikyx, who's engaged, I would say, suboptimally at times, and gets treated a bit like the Scuttle Crab did, as we saw like 30 seconds back. Just gets through the side, the Unraveler. Thank you very much. Not that she's my most played jungler this season, or anything like that. And just blows up. You know, like it's. But I did also say, Misfits, just stop. Please just stop. Stop doing it. And they have stopped for now. And as you can see, the pace of the game actually has slowed down quite a bit.
So I'm looking at the map setup right now. Ornn pushed out bot lane and is using that window to group up with his team. Does have TP, and I believe it's Bwipo that always says, blow the horn, you are on, or something. I can't remember.
That is the best quote. Oh, Misfits actually going to start up the
exactly.
Baron
This is it. So they're bringing Ornn up to they themselves start a 5v5.
They stopped it, though.
Well, they have, and this kind of ties in with a bunch of
They didn't blow the Ornn.
Right.
The horn.
So, there's a lot of things to say here, Medic. Give me a second, right? The thing about Misfits is their 5v5 is strong. We talked about this earlier on. 3 items is ideally what they want to wait for, but their actual ability to teamfight, because the amount of AoE damage that their whole comp has, is very, very good. The problem for Misfits is last week, when we saw them set up around the Baron, a blue trinket was enough to scare them off that objective. And now we're seeing it again, where an Ezreal ulti just zoned them away from the objective completely. They didn't get a TP out from Betsy. They didn't force Giants to do anything. It was literally just, we see you're doing it, Misfits, and they run away scared.
So would you say that they startle like rabbits?
They do indeed startle like rabbits, at least in recent weeks.
I want to be honest. Last night, like 10 o'clock, we were talking about that.
It's the flank.
Here comes the flank. Mikyx trying to get away, trying to be in from the side. Hunt Summer knocked away as well. Maxlore has the thrill of the hunt if he wants to join the fight, but the call of the Forge God was not enough really at all to start it up for Giants. They reset. Oh, it's nowhere near enough damage. The Observer's baited me. That was rude.
That was an interesting use of the Poppy ultimate there. I'm not sure. Maybe I missed something in that fight, but it seemed as though Ruin flanked and engaged, and then ulted the low health.
Yes, it did seem like Hunt Summer got knocked away from the fight. Baron has been set up here as well by Giants. Ruin.
Oh,
Get checked in by Mikyx. Hunt Summer's going to root him up as well, and Giants trying to fight on the other side, but that's only Alphari. The engage is strong here from Misfits. They find a catch. Betsy still pushing down towards this bottom lane.
And this is the thing with the Ryze split pushing in the bot lane, is that you have such a small window if you're Misfits, because he pushes ridiculously fast. You don't have much time to push out the wave and then group with your team if you're Alphari, because you know Betsy's is going to blast that minion wave down in no time at all.
Yeah, and so the mistake there from Giants was the fact that they looked for a pick, knowing that Misfits would want to face check the Baron, but they did it split apart. You had Poppy sitting in the blue buff brush, while Djoko and the other members were sitting right next to the Baron. They must have expected Misfits to walk in through that singular path and then allowed Ruin to flank him from behind, but because they didn't, Ruin ends up getting collapsed upon and he ends up going down. And Misfits would have liked to turn that into a big 5v5, but unfortunately they ran out of engage tools and they weren't able to collapse onto the rest of Giants, who are also just good at disengaging with the Taliyah, with the Ezreal, and with the Braum. So it ends up net positive for Giants because they secure a tower bot side. Now they've extended the goal lead to 7,000.
Monumental advantage for them. They had those 2 Oceans and the Infernal Drake in their back pocket as well. Next to spawn is a Cloud. And 4 items now on Steeelback, but we're starting to get past the point where Giants are that mid-game team. We're starting to get towards a late-game team, and although they call themselves the late-game kings, it's not always been their forte.
Yeah. But this is something that Foxdrop talked about a little bit earlier. You're right. The mid-game, or this point in the game, is where things get scary because of that Rengar ulti.
Yep, and the thing is, if he does go for it, it does open the top side of the map, but it looks as though Giants might actually be positioning to counter this one here.
Djoko on his way down with the Weaver's Wall. Maxlore pops on the hunt as well. Call of the Forge God comes out. Alphari down very low. Teleport cancelled. And that is a very dead Ornn.
That is the problem, though, at this stage of the game when you're so far behind. Honestly, that situation should, with those little bunny ears have worked well for Misfits in the setup. I think that the 2v2 there, that's perfect. Maxlore wants Taliyah to come down there and to set up that 2v2, because then out comes Rengar, bam, bloom, someone blows up and you're sorted. But because they're just so far behind, Maxlore didn't even get into that fight. He did absolutely nothing. He popped his ultimate and then just ran around in a circle.
Yeah, for me, it was just that Maxlore took so long to do it. I don't know if they were confident that Ryze was even still in the bot lane, but I wanted him to just pull the trigger earlier. I wanted him to make that play sooner, and now, oh, okay.
Yeah, Betsy should die here. The flash away, though. Holy moly, Betsy! Giant started the Baron. He didn't even use his Zhonya's. He doesn't have a Zhonya's. He didn't use it. Giant started the Baron here. TP coming in from Alphari. They jump straight onto Maxwell, trying to take him out before he can get away. The Keeper's Verdict will knock him up, and he is dead. The Baron is the next target now for Giants, and our top of the table team is getting dismantled by the team in ninth.
Giants are playing this beautifully right now. Their lane assignments, their map movements, their individual players are exceeding our expectations and are crushing Misfits with a 10,000 gold lead.
And I really like the decisiveness of Giants right there around that Baron play. Not just with the call to go for the Baron, but the way they instantly turned in onto Maxlore and just eliminated the possibility that that play would go against them.
And remember, one of the big criticisms that we had for Giants was that they didn't know how to convert an early game lead into a mid-game lead. They talked about this being their best week of practice, and it is paying off. Betsy sitting in a side lane, playing that 1-3-1. Giants didn't get baited into any team fights. They didn't try and force things that they didn't need to. They waited for Misfits to use the strength of Rengar to split off into a side lane, and they turned it around.
But speaking about the strength of Rengar, I feel like it's falling off of a cliff right now. Like, you do not want to play Rengar on the team that is this far behind, because now realistically, what do you do? Who do you go for? There is a Zhonya's from Taliyah. Poppy's obviously way too tanky. Even Betsy, he's got the Seraph shield, he's got his passive shield. And when you take a look at Steeelback, who's your only other option therefore, you've got Ninja Tabbies, you've got that Iceborne Gauntlet. You really just can't go in on anyone, which means, oof.
Well, you can go on to nukes a lot, but Mickey will pay for it with his own life. Giants can still push in here. You can see going up towards the top side. Steeelback, the only member in the mid. And Maxlore and Alphari are going to try and do something about that. The knock across the wall, Steeelback flashes, gets himself to safety.
It's the first time we've really seen that tandem though. The Ornn ultimate plus the Rengar ulti. It's powerful, but when you're this far behind, I mean, you just lost your top side, you're losing your bot side. It's not looking good if you're Misfits.
Things are looking dire for our #1 team in Europe right now. Last week is when, or their loss to Fnatic is when the weaknesses of this team started to show, and week on week, things seem to not be going as well for Misfits as they did at the start of the split. Giants now wanting to make that miracle run towards playoffs. They need that 5-1 or 6-0, and getting a win over Misfits would be so big for them in that race.
Ornn is getting chased up towards the top side, but the three-man knock back with the Keeper's Verdict. The verdict for the moment for Misfits is not good. Oop, that was an interesting little stutter at the end of that. They are guilty of a lot of things, Misfits, and Giants have called them out for their weaknesses.
And what I think is the most troubling weakness when I'm looking at Misfits right now is that this is the style that they were having success on at the beginning of this split. We have talked about how their criticisms and their kind of flounderings from their recent losses of being maybe they're trying different stuff out, maybe they're just like getting slightly complacent and practicing for playoffs potentially. This is a Misfits that really should not be losing this game and is hard to excuse.
Well, there are two slight differences that I believe between early game and the mid game. You're right in that they often play towards the early game. I feel like that in this game they could have done that and they failed to do it. The one player that I'm looking at who's kind of failed is Maxlore. Because when you look at early games in the split, Camille, Taliyah, Graves, things that he can actually have a lot of early game impact on, he's not shown. Last week he played Sejuani, wasn't able to find that same impact. Now we're seeing the Rengar. He has not had a single successful ult. You talk so much about how he could have gone mid. There was a flashless Ryze, he didn't take advantage of it, and every other gank failed. And he is one of the guys that really helps find those early leads. You only have to think back to week 1, where they were invading Fnatic at level 1 and had that insane level 1 play. This is not the Maxlore that we're currently seeing, and if Misfits really want to stand a chance of holding onto that top spot and maintaining it, then they need to find Maxlore. Oh, Maxlore needs to refine his form.
Reaver's War used here by Giants to separate Misfits from their last remaining inhibitor. Misfits only picked up 2 towers and 2 kills in this game, but Mikyx looking for the flank, the one-man knockup. He's already down so low, and Giants can force the tempo of this game. They want to kill the top dogs today. Maxlore goes down into the GA. He will fall not soon after. The call of the Forge God, praying to some deity to save you, Alphari. But Giants do not answer to any god you know of. They take down the Titans of Misfits. Sencux dives into the midst of it all, but still Djoko comes out on top with the triple, the ace. Giants destroy Misfits in their base, and the team in 9th place is going to take out our split leaders. Giants come out huge. The playoff dream is still alive.
Massive win for Giants. The upset happens, and the beginning of the miracle run starts today.
Not just an upset win, arguably the biggest upset we've seen so far in the LCS.
That's
the
for
LCS,
sure.
I would say. Until HK beats someone, I have to say that this is the biggest upset. And honestly, in what fashion they did it, this wasn't a game that I feel like Misfits were just throwing it away and Giants got a freebie. Giants 100% took it to Misfits. They improved upon the areas where they had criticisms of them mid and late game, and they just look like a really solid team.
They executed laning phase very well. Djoko, he wasn't just trying to force random ganks over the map. He was in the right place at the right time, shutting Maxlore down, and then they executed upon their win conditions. 1-3-1. They played the map well. Yes, perhaps you could argue they were a little slow. Maybe they could have forced things a little bit quicker, but in the end, they didn't need to. They punished the mistakes from Misfits effectively. They found those leads, and they didn't throw them away. And so much credit needs to be given to Betsy with how well he played.
And to Steeelback, in all honesty, matching up into Hun Summit in the lane, getting that first kill down towards that bottom side, and doing the most damage in the game as well. Ezreal is easy to do damage on, you just spam out those Qs, but to play those final team fights well, Djoko did as well. Just overall, I'm in awe at how well Giants played this game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the mid-split MVP not having a great performance, that being Maxlore. 5k damage there, not great. This play happens right at the end of the game, which is just really the Hail Mary for Misfits. They have decent engage coming out of that Rakan, and as was really a theme of this game, Rakan jumps in, Rakan gets sent to the Shadow Realm.
Yeah, and you think about it, when you look at this comp, the Braum is an excellent answer to so many of the tools, the engage tools from Misfits, the Poppy as well. Just so many, it made it so difficult for Misfits to actually engage these late game fights that with this massive lead, they could never really find a big comeback miracle fight.
And do you know what else is a good answer? Being 10,000 gold up.
Yeah, that does help, just a little bit.
We have to get to that point first. We want to get input from you guys on who your player of the game is. Head on over to @lolesports on Twitter and vote for Djoko, Betsy, or Steeelback. Steeelback.
He had decent damage.
For me, I'm looking at Djoko or Betsy.
Oh, I hear Steeelback. Yeah, great call, Foxtrot.
Yeah, really solid plan, mate.
Solid play.
Steeelback. To get some more insight on Giants win, let's head over to Law and Steeelback.
Thank you, Medic, and congratulations, Steeelback, on this one. Now, the late game kings taking down one of the most early game standard team in the LCS. What was your strategy here coming today?
Well, pretty much today we knew they were a really strong team, so we were coming in the mindset that it was hard, but the whole week in Scrim we legit won every game, like we were undefeated, and we were always doing good in Scrim, but on stage we had a hard time. But I feel like today it was like in Scrims. So I'm really happy that we could actually manage to play without any pressure on us.
Yeah, your coach was saying it's one of the best week of practice you have during the whole split. Yeah. Could you elaborate on that? How was that different?
Well, pretty much, I don't know, this week it was like maybe the champ pool, the meta changed again and there was new patch and a lot of things changed and we kind of found our way how to close up the game, because before we were really good early, we were always getting ahead on lane and on rotation, but we couldn't close out, so we focused on mid-game, late game only, and we actually managed to do it today.
And it worked, and it worked. So here the playoff dream stays alive, but what do you have to stay to keep this playoff dream alive and make it a reality?
Well, I think we have to win like almost every game. We have only one loss possible. I think it's still alive. I think we can still make it. I hope we're going to do it, but we focus game by game and we try to work hard to show that we're actually a good team. Yeah.
Who would you say is your toughest opponent coming in the upcoming weeks?
Well, definitely Fnatic. I think they're really good and it's going to be the strongest team to play against. So we're looking forward to play versus them, yeah.
Well, I wish you good luck on this one and congratulations.
Thank you.
Again, now we're going to go on to a short break. And when we come back, it's going to be Vitality versus Fnatic. But before that, let's take a sneak peek on the match of the game tomorrow, match of the week tomorrow.
G2 versus Fnatic, for these organizations, for these specific players, it's personal. When G2 went to the final, they thought that they had a chance.
I thought we could win, of course, but when we lost, I was like crushed, you know, couldn't believe it.
Reckless styled on them with tentacles. Caps solo killed Perkz.
He just solo killed Perkz!
Perkz definitely took that to heart.
G2 Esports went from winning 4 titles in a row to getting 3-0 in a final against Fnatic. So the fact that Fnatic got their revenge this year ignites the rivalry between the organizations.
To a did on the back end and he's being zoned out. Yet another kill to Perkz.
Last time it was the beginning of the season. It was G2 who knew exactly what to do with their funnel comp. On the other hand, G2 Esports after Rift Rivals haven't been that on point.
It still looks like G2 is having some jet lag, so I wonder what's going on there.
But in the last couple of weeks, they have made some statements.
This is great stuff from G2.
Now I want to see what they can do versus Fnatic in their revamped form.
The skill level between these two teams, it seems almost dead even.
I don't see it being even for very long.
Jankos is really not playing around. If I do manage to out-jungle him, then I can be satisfied, because I've taken down the jungle in Europe that I respect the most.
You get to watch some of the best players in Europe play the best picks in the current meta. Fnatic, they are without a doubt the most creative team at getting early leads. G2's way to win this is through the top side of the map, and then make sure that Perkz is not getting chain ganked in the mid lane.
And not only is it going to be fighting, it's going to be with really weird champions.
This will be the first time that we'll actually just match up lanes and lanes. We are just straight up better.
The first professional game in the LCS Caps played, he solo killed Perkz twice. And I think Perkz is a smarter player, but I think Caps is more hungry.
When these two are matching up against each other, they're fighting for the title of best mid lane in Europe.
Most mid laners in Europe are really afraid of blind picking against me, so I'll get all the strong champions while Perkz is going to try to find out a counter he doesn't have.
He's like cocky in draft. Wukong mid would not work against me.
No one even comes near Caps when it comes to mid laners in Europe, and that has to hurt for Perkz.
Like every single player from his team goes mid. That's what makes it hard to play against him.
I'm going to have to keep an eye on my mid laner. He's going to do some crazy things to make sure that he's going to prove that he's the better player.
Perkz was the best mid in EU. I always felt that I was the second best behind him. I feel like I kind of overcame him. Would even question if he's the second best mid.
G2 versus Fnatic is the best we have to offer in Europe. There will be supports roaming, there will be junglers ganking, there will be mid laners fighting, then you're guaranteed action.
I want G2 to say, we won't have a repeat of the Copenhagen finals. We are here and we are back.
I just want to crush them. I just want to finally be able to win against Fnatic.
No one's going to play around in this one. Everyone's going to go at each other. It's going to be a bloodbath.
This could be the best regular season game we've had in years.